Do you believe that Tom's former protege, Jimmy Garoppolo, can bounce back from the bye and take out Justin Herbert and the boys? Or do you believe that the Chargers can finally get on a consistent winning track to try to compete in the AFC West?
Kev, I don't have a lot of faith in the Chargers this week simply just because they're going up against a really good defense in the 49ers. And when we look back to the 49ers last game against the Rams, take it with a grain of salt. The Rams have their offensive struggles. I fully understand that. They only gave up 14 points. And that was coming off of an ass whooping that they suffered against the Kansas City Chiefs the week before. So they definitely kind of learned some of their lessons and definitely bounced back against their NFC West rival in the Rams. And when it comes to this matchup that they have against the Chargers, I still believe it's a favorable one for them, simply just because, Kev, let's face it, the Chargers have been really up and down this year. And granted, they had, I would consider, a nice road win against the Falcons last week, but they were still shaky. They only put up 20 points in that game. Justin Herbert is throwing the ball an insane amount of times, at least 40 to 50 times a game, in some cases over 50 times. And it just seems as if the Chargers are in a situation where it's pass or die. Like they're just rolling with passing the ball pretty much 75 to 80% of the time and to live with the results. And I don't think it's going to work out for them in the long run. And granted, they are sitting, I believe, at a 5-3 record, and they're kind of holding pace with the Chiefs, but they've largely struggled in some of the games this year where they've gotten absolutely blown out. And I think that if the Chargers aren't careful, they could actually get blown out in this game by the 49ers just because the 49ers have a great defense. They could turn the ball over and they could get consistent pass rushes. And the Chargers have struggled to be able to hold up Justin Herbert in the pocket. I mean, there was a couple games ago where they were playing against the Seahawks. You could look back against even the Jaguars a couple weeks back where they were turning the ball over. Justin Herbert was getting sacked an incredible amount of times, and the Chargers got completely stomped on in those respective games against the Jaguars and the Seahawks. So you look at what the 49ers present them, just looking at what the 49ers have on their offensive personnel. Christian McCaffrey, I believe, is getting more fully integrated into what Kyle Shanahan is running with their system, and he had a great game looking back to that Rams matchup in Week 8 where he had 3 touchdowns, and they all kind of came in different forms. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Christian McCaffrey continues to build off of that Week 8 success that he had against the Rams. You're looking at what they just have with Jimmy G, and Jimmy G has been just very consistent this year. There have been times where I believe that he's needed to elevate his game just because that the 49ers have been relatively up and down, depending on which game you refer to. But I think that they have the requisite pieces to go out against the Chargers this Sunday and do what needs to be done. And I think by and large, I just don't have a lot of faith in that Chargers defense to hold up. Whenever they've been tested by a really good offense, they've relatively struggled. And I think this is no exception in this case. I think that the 49ers could put up 27 to 35 points in this game. And if the Chargers are in any way, shape, or form turnover prone in this game, they could lose this one by 2 possessions as far as I see it. So if I had to put a score on it or just an outright pick, I got the 49ers winning this one. I think they're going to win this one by 10 games. I don't think it's going to be an absolute runaway where the 49ers win this one by like 17, 20 points plus. But I love the 49ers here. They're at home, and I think they're just going to ride the wave of what they had on Week 8. They're fully recovered from their bye week in Week 9, and I think they get business taken care of in this one. So if I had to put a score on this one, I say they're going to win this one with the 49ers 34 to 24. I still believe that the Chargers are going to be able to put up points. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if the 49ers are able to force 1 or 2 interceptions off of Justin Herbert. And you tie in the fact that the Chargers wide receiving core is once again dinged up. We don't know whether or not that Keenan Allen's going to be available. I just can't have a lot of faith here with the Chargers. So I got the 49ers all day in this one. And we'll see how they can ride the momentum going into the second half of the season.
I couldn't really agree more, honestly. For once, I think you stole my thunder. Justin Herbert's been struggling. The injuries on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, have been a burden for the Chargers. We all knew what they were projected to be in terms of not just within the AFC West, but in the NFL. We thought that this was going to be one of those super teams to an extent, but it just has not gone that way for them thus far. Deebo Samuel is coming back for the Niners in terms of coming back healthy. He had the bye week to get healthy, get right. CMC is probably getting fresh. He has looked great in his short tenure with the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo has looked solid this year. Brandon Ayuk is getting his good targets. Kittle's getting good looks. The offensive line is improving, but again, still kind of like dwindling and struggling in certain instances. Nick Bosa's got 8.5 sacks this year, so you really have to look at the overall playmakers on both sides of the ball. Fred Warner's just been absolutely just a man amongst boys at the middle linebacker position this year. And I think that San Fran needs to take this next step and say, this is one of the better teams in the NFL. This is one of the better teams in the AFC. We need to make a statement here. We're coming fresh off the bye. They struggled against Atlanta. Atlanta beat us. We need to be able to show that we can beat a team like the Chargers, especially with their weakened personnel group as they have been. They have not been able to stop the run in terms of the Chargers. They obviously allowed well over 100 yards against Atlanta. I think that CMC is going to have a huge game. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to look really good coming out of the bye in terms of getting his favorite weapon back in Deebo. Ayuk is going to get single coverage. So it's just a matter of, will this team be able to capitalize? Now, I will preview that this could be the 49ers of a couple of weeks ago when they got smacked up by the Chiefs. And of course, they also got embarrassed by the Falcons a couple weeks prior to that as well. So we really need to pay attention to what 49ers team we're getting this week, because if they're taking the week off, they could potentially get slapped up by Justin Herbert. Now, obviously, Keenan Allen's questionable. Mike Williams has been ruled out. Austin Eckler's the leading receiver here on this team thus far. So if Austin Eckler's going to be catching a whole lot out of the backfield and, catching some short routes, and to, of course, make some yards after the catch, this could be a little bit of a headache for the 49ers because, again, that's just small chunk plays that drain the clock and make drives a lot longer, keep the ball away from Jimmy, and get that defense really tired in San Fran. This could easily become a lot closer. Now, I will say that this one's going to be a little bit closer than what Kyle predicted because I just think that San Francisco, for whatever reason, has, like I said, weeks where they're off, weeks where they're not. And I have a feeling that this one could be potentially a nail-biter and to come down to a game-winning field goal, just because I don't think that both teams are similar, but they are. Obviously, San Fran doesn't have the injuries that LA does, but in certain instances, both teams just look very suspect in a lot of ways. Different ways, but still, they look suspect in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to go with San Francisco by a field goal here. I think that this could easily come down to a 28-24 score, 28-20. What am I talking about? 24-27 San Francisco. I did math wrong because I'm ridiculous. And I got San Fran winning a nail biter. But again, this is going to be a lot closer than what people are anticipating because I think that Justin Herbert has a bounce back week, but I also think that Jimmy Garoppolo could end up playing very, very efficiently. It's just a matter of if both defenses are going to be able to stop the other.